I'm 65 years old, Charlotte, and I've spent 3 decades hosting Christmas in the Vermont home my late husband Robert and I built together. It became our family's heart warm, filled with memories and traditions I've preserved since he passed. When my son James married Melissa 5 years ago, things slowly changed. Yesterday, she called with news that left me speechless. "We're bringing my entire family for Christmas. It's only 26 people. Like my home suddenly became a hotel." If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're viewing from, and hit that subscribe button to join me as I share what happened next. Growing up in a small Vermont town shaped my appreciation for family gatherings. As a retired elementary school teacher who taught 3rd grade for 32 years, organizing and planning are second nature to me. My husband Robert and I were married for 35 wonderful years before I lost him to heart disease 8 years ago. We built our dream home together when James was just 3 and Sarah was a newborn, a beautiful 2-story colonial with 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and the spacious kitchen I'd always wanted. Robert was a skilled carpenter who worked alongside the contractors, adding special touches throughout the house. The hand-carved banister on the staircase, built-in bookcases in the living room, and window seats in both children's bedrooms. We designed this home with family in mind, imagining holidays filled with laughter and love. And for 30 years, that's exactly what we created. Christmas became our signature family tradition. I'd spend weeks preparing hanging garlands along the staircase, setting up the tree in front of the bay window, and arranging my collection of nutcrackers that grew each year, as the children always gifted me a new one. Robert would handle the outdoor lights, creating a display that neighborhood children would come to see. My kitchen would transform into a holiday workshop. I'd bake my grandmother's gingerbread cookies, Robert's favorite pecan pie, and experiment with new recipes I'd collect throughout the year. The dining room table would extend to seat 12 comfortably with my mother's china and crystal glasses that I'd inherited, making each dinner feel special. After Robert passed, maintaining these traditions became my way of keeping his memory alive. The first Christmas without him was unbearably painful. But James, Sarah, and their partners rallied around me. We shared stories about Robert, laughed at his tendency to always buy the tallest tree that barely fit through the door, and cried together when I hung his special ornament, a wooden cardinal he'd carved our first Christmas together. James met Melissa at the architectural firm where he works in Boston 7 years ago. She was an interior designer brought in for a special project, and according to James, they connected immediately over their shared passion for design. When he first brought her home to meet me, she was polite and complimentary about the house, though she did mention several times how she would update certain aspects if it were her home. At their wedding 5 years ago, I got to meet Melissa's parents, Francis and Gloria, along with her younger sister Tanya. They seemed nice enough, though Gloria made several comments about how quaint our small town was in a tone that didn't sound entirely complimentary. I brushed it off, wanting only to focus on James's happiness. The first few Christmases with Melissa were adjustment periods for all of us. She insisted on adding her own decorations alongside our family heirlooms, which I tried to embrace as the blending of traditions. However, there were small incidents that should have been warning signs, like the time she rearranged my carefully planned dinner seating without asking, or when she invited 3 friends to join our Christmas Eve celebration without checking if we had enough food prepared. 2 years ago, she suggested that her parents join us for Christmas, which I agreed to warmly. However, Gloria spent most of the visit pointing out areas of the house that needed modernizing and critiquing my traditional Christmas dinner as being too heavy and old-fashioned. Francis was pleasant enough, though he monopolized Robert's recliner, the one piece of furniture I couldn't bear to have anyone else use. I never mentioned how much that hurt. Through it all, I tried to maintain family harmony. James seemed happy, and that was what mattered most to me. Sarah, who lives in Chicago with her husband Michael and their twin boys, would call frequently to check on me, sensing the growing tension during her own holiday visits. "Mom, you don't have to let Melissa take over everything," she'd say during our private conversations. But I would remind her and myself that compromise was part of welcoming new family members. Little did I know how much that philosophy would be tested this year. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon in early November, just as I was writing my Christmas shopping list. I always begin preparations early, particularly since shipping delays had become common in recent years. Seeing Melissa's name on my caller ID, I answered with genuine warmth. "Melissa, I was just thinking about Christmas. I found those specialty chocolates you liked last year." There was a peculiar excitement in her voice. "Charlotte, that's actually why I'm calling. I have the best news." Something in her tone made me sit down at my kitchen table. "Oh, what's that?" "My whole family is coming for Christmas this year. Isn't that wonderful? They'll all stay at your house since you have all that space. It's only 26 people." The silence that followed must have lasted several seconds as my mind tried to process what she'd just said. 26 people. In my home, where would they all sleep, eat, or even sit? Melissa. I finally managed, keeping my voice steady. "That's quite a large group. I'm not sure the house can accommodate that many people comfortably." She laughed as if I'd said something amusing. "Don't be silly. Your house is huge. We'll make it work. My parents, my 3 sisters, and their husbands and kids, my 2 brothers and their families, and my Aunt Patricia and Uncle George, who are visiting from Arizona." I tried another approach. "Have you looked into nearby hotels or vacation rentals? The Maple Creek Inn has lovely family suites and they're just 10 minutes away." "Hotels at Christmas, that's so impersonal." She sounded genuinely offended. "Family stays together at Christmas. That's what makes it special." "Yes, but 26 people plus you, James, and me would be 29 people total. I only have 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms." I was trying to be practical. "It's just for a few days," she countered dismissively. "We'll bring air mattresses. The kids can camp out in the living room. They'll love it. It'll be like a big slumber party." My mind flashed back to last Christmas when just her parents had stayed. Gloria had complained about sharing a bathroom with James and Melissa, saying she needed her own private space for her extensive morning routine. How would everyone manage with just 3 bathrooms now and meals? I asked. "My dining room table seats 12 with the extension. Even with the folding tables from the basement, we couldn't seat everyone at once." "We'll do buffet style. People can eat wherever they find a spot. It'll be casual and fun." By the end of the conversation, it was clear Melissa had made up her mind and was merely informing me of the plan, not asking for my input. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence for nearly an hour. That evening, I called Sarah, needing someone to validate that my concerns were reasonable. 26 people, she exclaimed. Has she lost her mind? Where does she expect everyone to sleep? Apparently on air mattresses throughout the house, I sighed. And let me guess, she expects you to cook for all these people too. She didn't specifically say, but there was no mention of catering or them helping with meals. Sarah's protective instincts flared. Mom, you need to talk to James directly. This is completely unreasonable. I don't want to cause problems between them. I hesitated. Well, Melissa has no problem causing problems for you, Sarah pointed out. At minimum, James should know what his wife is planning. After our call, I sat at my kitchen table with a pad of paper, trying to calculate what hosting 26 additional people would entail. The groceries alone would cost hundreds of dollars. I'd need to cook for days in advance. The water heater would never keep up with 29 people needing showers. The septic system wasn't designed for that many people either. And the cleaning before and after would be enormous. The more I thought about it, the more anxious I became. This wasn't just about inconvenience. It was about my home being commandeered without my consent, my boundaries being completely disregarded, and me being expected to shoulder all the work. I decided Sarah was right. I needed to speak with James. I invited James and Melissa for dinner the following weekend, preparing James's favorite pot roast in hopes of creating a pleasant atmosphere for what would likely be a difficult conversation. They arrived just as I was taking the roast out of the oven, the aroma filling the kitchen. Something smells amazing, James said, giving me a warm hug and kiss on the cheek. Melissa offered a quick side hug. Your pot roast is always so traditional. I've been experimenting with plant-based holiday options myself. I smiled and handed them each a glass of wine, waiting until we were seated at the dinner table before bringing up the topic at hand. I wanted to talk with both of you about the Christmas plans, I began carefully. I'm concerned about hosting 26 guests. It's significantly more than we've ever had before. James looked confused. 26? What do you mean? Melissa jumped in. I told you, honey. My family is coming for Christmas, my parents, sisters, brothers, their kids, Aunt Patricia, and Uncle George. You said some of your family, James corrected. I didn't realize it was 26 people. I felt a small sense of relief that James hadn't been fully aware of the scale of Melissa's plans. The house simply isn't equipped for that many people, I explained. I've been thinking about alternatives that could work for everyone. Perhaps your family could split up between here and the Maple Creek Inn, or we could look at renting the community center for the main Christmas dinner. Melissa's expression hardened slightly. Your house is perfect. It has plenty of room. For 5 or 6 guests, yes, I agreed, but not for 26. Where would everyone sleep? We'll bring air mattresses, she repeated her earlier solution. The younger kids can use sleeping bags. It's only for 4 nights. What about bathrooms? I asked. Last year your mother mentioned she wasn't comfortable sharing. Mom can use the master bathroom and everyone else can work around each other's schedules with the other 2, she said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. James looked increasingly uncomfortable. Maybe we should consider the hotel idea for some of the family, Mel. Mom has a point about the space limitations. I felt grateful for his support, but Melissa was quick to counter. But we've always talked about having a big family Christmas, James. Remember, this is our chance. Everyone is finally able to come. Do you know how hard it was to coordinate everyone's schedules? I understand that, I said gently, and I'm not saying we can't celebrate together. I'm just suggesting we need a more practical arrangement for sleeping and possibly for the main dinner. I could help find accommodations, I offered, and I'd be happy to contribute toward the cost if that's a concern. Melissa put down her fork with a little too much force. I don't understand why you're being so difficult about this. It's Christmas, a time for family to be together. Are you saying my family isn't welcome in your precious house? The accusation stung. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'd love to meet your extended family. I'm just concerned about the logistics and everyone's comfort. We'll make it work, she insisted. Everyone in my family is excited about staying in your beautiful historic home in Vermont. I've already told them all about our Christmas traditions and how much you love hosting. By the end of dinner, nothing had been resolved. James tried half-heartedly to suggest compromises, but Melissa skillfully redirected each one. I could see he was torn between supporting me and keeping peace with his wife. As they prepared to leave, Melissa hugged me and said, "Don't worry about a thing. Everyone's bringing food to contribute, and my sisters and I will handle the Christmas dinner. You won't have to do a thing except enjoy having a full house." Somehow, I didn't believe it would be that simple. After they left, I sat in Robert's old leather recliner in the den, wishing he were here to advise me. He had always been better at establishing boundaries while I tended to accommodate others to maintain harmony. That night, I barely slept, feeling as though I'd been steamrolled in my own home. The place Robert and I had built together, the home where we'd raised our children and created decades of memories, was being treated like a free hotel and event space. Worse, I felt like my role had been reduced to that of an unpaid housekeeper and cook, expected to smile and serve without having any say in the matter. Over the next 2 weeks, Melissa's texts and calls became increasingly frequent, each bringing new requests and requirements that made it clear her earlier assurance of, "You won't have to do a thing," was far from the truth. The first message arrived 3 days after our dinner. "Just checking, my brother Kyle is gluten and dairy-free, Aunt Patricia is vegetarian, my niece Amanda has a severe nut allergy, and my sister Tanya's husband only eats organic. That won't be a problem for the meals, right?" Before I could formulate a response, another text arrived. Also, would it be okay if we used your good china and crystal for Christmas dinner? I want it to be special for everyone. And do you still have those heirloom tablecloths your mother gave you? I responded that accommodating the dietary restrictions would require careful planning and additional shopping, and that while my china could be used, I only had service for 12. I didn't receive an acknowledgement of these concerns, just another request the following day. James and I were thinking we might need to rearrange some furniture to create more space in the living room. Nothing major, just moving a few pieces to the garage or basement temporarily. The requests continued to escalate. My mother suggested we should probably store your collectibles somewhere safe with so many children running around. Where would you prefer we put them? Kyle is bringing his new Tesla and is concerned about it being parked on the street. Would it be okay if he parks in your garage? We can move your car out. A few of my cousins who live near Burlington want to stop by for a small gathering on the 23rd. I hope that's okay. It would only be about 10 more people for an afternoon. Each message increased my anxiety. I tried to set some boundaries by suggesting alternatives or explaining limitations, but my concerns were either dismissed or ignored. During this time, I spoke with my sister Paula, who lives in Florida and has always been more outspoken than me. Charlotte, you're being used, she said bluntly when I explained the situation. They're treating your home like an Airbnb without the B&B part. No payment, no respect for the host's rules, nothing. I don't want to create family drama, I sighed. Honey, you're not creating it, Melissa is. And James is allowing it by not standing up for you. A few days later, I overheard a conversation that confirmed my worst fears. I had stopped by James and Melissa's house to drop off some Christmas decorations they had stored in my attic, and Melissa was on the phone in the kitchen, unaware of my presence in the hallway. Don't worry about bringing serving dishes or anything, she was saying cheerfully. My mother-in-law has tons of stuff, and she loves doing all this hosting stuff. She's been doing it forever, so she has everything we could possibly need. Yeah, she'll probably handle most of the cooking, too. She's really into her traditional Christmas meals. I quietly left the decorations in the living room and departed without making my presence known, a knot forming in my stomach. Despite what Melissa had told me about her sisters handling Christmas dinner, it was clear she expected me to take on most of the work. The final straw came during a phone call the following week when Melissa casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, would it be a problem if everyone stayed through New Year's? A few of the families were hoping to make it an extended vacation since they'll already be in Vermont. We could do a big New Year's Eve party, too." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence, staring at the calendar. What had started as a 4-day Christmas visit had now expanded to a 10-day occupation of my home by 26 people who felt entitled to rearrange my furniture, use my belongings, and expect me to cook and clean for them all without any genuine consultation or consideration for my feelings. Something inside me snapped, not in an angry way, but in the way a rope finally breaks after being pulled too far for too long. That evening, I settled into Robert's old leather reading chair in the corner of our bedroom, the one piece of furniture I'd kept exactly as it was since he passed. In the early days of grief, I would sit here and feel his presence, finding comfort in the lingering scent of his aftershave that had long since faded. "What would you tell me to do, Robert?" I whispered into the quiet room. I could almost hear his voice, gentle but firm. "Char, you need to stand up for yourself. This is your home, too." Robert had always been my backbone in difficult situations. He was the one who could say no without guilt, who understood that setting boundaries wasn't selfish, but necessary. In our marriage, I was the peacekeeper while he was the protector. Without him, I'd fallen into the habit of avoiding conflict at all costs, particularly with James wanting desperately to preserve our relationship after losing Robert. But at what cost was I keeping this false peace? I barely slept that night, weighing my options and responsibilities. Was I being selfish for not wanting to host 26 strangers for 10 days? Was I failing as a mother and mother-in-law by not enthusiastically embracing Melissa's plans? Around 3 a.m., I remembered something my doctor had said during my last checkup. "Charlotte, your blood pressure is higher than I'd like. You need to reduce stress in your life." She didn't know about the holiday plans brewing, but her warning echoed in my mind. By morning, I had clarity. This wasn't about being unwelcoming or ungenerous. This was about being treated with basic respect. Somewhere along the way, my role in the family had been reduced to unpaid housekeeper and cook, expected to smile and serve without having any say in the matter. With a new sense of purpose, I opened my laptop and began researching options I'd never considered before Christmas vacations for singles. To my surprise, there were many opportunities: holiday-themed cruises, all-inclusive resorts, even guided tours to European Christmas markets. One option immediately caught my eye: a 10-day Caribbean cruise departing on December 20th, 3 days before Christmas. The itinerary included stops at 5 islands' special holiday celebrations on board and a New Year's Eve gala. The cruise line offered a special rate for solo travelers, and there was even a direct flight available from Burlington to Miami. My finger hovered over the Book Now button as doubt crept in. Was I really going to abandon our family traditions? Leave my son at Christmas? What would people think? I closed the laptop and called my best friend Diana, who had been widowed 2 years before me and had recently started traveling solo. "Do it," she said without hesitation when I explained my plan. "Charlotte, you've given everyone else 30 Christmases. It's time you gave one to yourself." "But what about James and all the traditions?" "Honey, traditions are meant to bring joy, not servitude. And as for James, he's a grown man who's allowed his wife to treat his mother like the help. Maybe a Christmas without you doing everything will be educational for both of them." After our call, I reopened my laptop, took a deep breath, and booked the cruise. The moment the confirmation appeared on my screen, an overwhelming sense of relief washed over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The mixture of guilt and liberation was dizzying, but beneath it all was something I hadn't felt in a long time: the quiet satisfaction of taking back my power. A week later, I invited James and Melissa for dinner again. This time, I prepared Melissa's favorite salmon dish and even attempted the quinoa salad she had once mentioned liking. The table was set beautifully with candles and fresh flowers, a small gesture of the care I still felt for them despite everything. They arrived right on time, James kissing my cheek, and Melissa offering the same quick side hug as always. Throughout the meal, they discussed their work projects and plans for the house they were hoping to build next year. I listened attentively, asking questions and offering encouragement. It wasn't until I served dessert, a homemade raspberry tart, that I decided it was time. "I wanted to let you both know that I've made plans for Christmas this year," I said calmly, placing their dessert plates before them. Melissa looked up confused. "What do you mean, plans?" "We already have plans. My family is coming, remember?" "Yes, that's your plan," I acknowledged with a smile. "Mine is different. I've booked a Caribbean cruise that departs on December 20th and returns on December 30th. The stunned silence that followed was profound. James's fork clattered against his plate as he set it down abruptly. "Mom, you can't be serious," he finally managed. "You've never missed Christmas at home." "I know," I agreed. "It will be different for all of us." Melissa recovered more quickly than James. "But what about Christmas dinner? All the traditions, who's going to cook for everyone?" The irony of her question wasn't lost on me. After weeks of being told I wouldn't have to do a thing, suddenly my cooking was indispensable. "I'm sure you'll manage beautifully," I replied, echoing her earlier dismissive assurance to me. "After all, you mentioned your sisters would be handling Christmas dinner." "But that was just—" She stopped herself, realizing the contradiction she was about to voice. "We were counting on using your house. Where is everyone supposed to stay now?" "The house will still be here," I said. "You're welcome to use it. I'll leave a detailed list of where everything is, instructions for the heating system, and emergency contact information." "You expect us to host 26 people without you?" Melissa's voice had risen slightly. I believe your exact words were that it would be casual and fun, and that we'll make it work, I reminded her gently. I'm simply taking you at your word. James looked hurt and confused. Mom, I don't understand. Christmas has always been your favorite holiday. You love hosting. I do love hosting, I agreed, when I'm treated as a host and not as a servant. My words hung in the air between us. James had the grace to look uncomfortable while Melissa's expression hardened. This is about my family coming, isn't it? She challenged. You never wanted them here. This isn't about who's coming, I clarified. It's about how the decision was made. My home and my time were volunteered without my consent. My concerns were dismissed. My boundaries were ignored. I turned to James. Honey, I've hosted Christmas for 30 years. I've cooked countless meals, decorated endless trees, and created memories I cherish. But I won't be taken for granted, not even by the people I love most. Looking back at Melissa, I added firmly, I'm not a servant, Melissa. I'm going on vacation. Melissa abruptly stood up, her dessert barely touched. This is ridiculous. You're being completely selfish. What am I supposed to tell my family now? You might try telling them the truth, I suggested. That you assumed I would host and serve everyone without checking if that arrangement worked for me. James stood up as well, looking torn. Mom, please, can't we talk about this? Find a compromise? I tried to discuss compromises weeks ago, I reminded him gently. Those attempts were dismissed. Well, this is just perfect, Melissa snapped, grabbing her purse. Come on, James, we need to figure out what to do now. James hesitated, clearly conflicted, but ultimately followed his wife to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. Mom, please reconsider. It's Christmas. Yes, I agreed softly. It's Christmas for me, too. After they left, I sat alone at my beautifully set table, my emotions swirling between guilt and liberation. Had I done the right thing? Would this damage my relationship with James forever? But beneath the anxiety was a surprising sense of peace. For the first time in years, I had stood up for myself. Robert would have been proud. In the weeks that followed, my relationship with Melissa turned distinctly chilly. She stopped responding to my texts, except with one-word answers, and declined my next dinner invitation with a terse, "We're busy." James, on the other hand, began reaching out more frequently, though our conversations were strained at first. Initially, he tried to convince me to change my mind, emphasizing family traditions and how much everyone would miss me. Mom, Christmas won't be the same without you, he said during one phone call. Change can be good, I responded gently. Maybe this year we'll create new traditions. As my departure date approached, and it became clear I wouldn't be changing my plans, James's attitude gradually shifted from disappointment to reluctant acceptance. In one particularly honest conversation, he admitted, I didn't realize how much Melissa had taken over the planning without consulting you. I should have paid more attention. Meanwhile, I focused on preparing for my trip, buying new summer clothes in December, a novel experience for a New Englander. Diana, who had taken the same cruise the previous year, offered advice on shore excursions and which restaurants on board were best. Book the spa treatments early, she recommended. They fill up fast during holiday cruises. I took her advice, scheduling a massage and facial for Christmas Eve, a gift to myself, instead of the usual shopping for others. Melissa's messages became increasingly desperate as reality set in. 5 days before my departure, she texted, James says you're really going through with this cruise. What am I supposed to do about Christmas dinner now? I responded with a list of local catering companies and a link to a recipe website. These might help. The folder on my kitchen counter has all my holiday recipes if you want to use those. 2 days later, where do you keep the extra blankets and pillows, and do you have air mattresses we can use? I answered all her practical questions patiently and created a detailed document with information about the house, where to find extra toiletries, how to adjust the thermostat, which cabinet contained extra garbage bags. I printed this and left it prominently on the kitchen counter. Sarah flew in from Chicago to spend a day with me before I left, leaving her husband and the twins to join her later at James and Melissa's house. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she said as she helped me pack. "It takes courage to break patterns, especially ones as established as your Christmas hosting." "I feel guilty sometimes," I admitted. "Like I'm abandoning everyone." "You're not abandoning anyone," she assured me. "You're teaching everyone, including yourself, that your needs matter too." On the morning of December 20th, I placed the house keys on the kitchen counter along with my detailed notes. I'd stocked the refrigerator with basics, left the Christmas decorations in labeled boxes in the hall closet, and made sure the guest rooms had clean linens. As my taxi arrived to take me to the airport, I felt a moment of panic. Was I making a terrible mistake? Then I remembered Melissa's dismissive tone when she'd announced her family's arrival and her assumption that I would cook and clean for everyone without complaint. The 10-hour journey to Miami and subsequent boarding of the cruise ship passed in a blur of excitement and nervousness. When I finally entered my ocean view stateroom, decorated with subtle holiday touches, a weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying seemed to lift from my shoulders. That evening, I joined a dinner table for solo travelers, where I met Margaret from Toronto, Eduardo from Mexico City, and Jean from Seattle, all escaping various family complications for the holidays. My son and his wife were renovating their house and asked if they could move in with me just for a month or two while the work was done, Margaret shared. That was 8 months ago, with no end in sight. My sister volunteered my house for the family reunion without asking me, Eduardo added. I decided a cruise was preferable to having 20 relatives critiquing my life choices under my own roof. Their stories made me feel less alone in my decision, and by the end of dinner, we had made plans to meet for breakfast and a shore excursion the next day. On Christmas Eve, after my scheduled spa treatments, I received a text from James with a photo of their Christmas Eve dinner, a slightly chaotic scene of mismatched plates on folding tables in my living room with unfamiliar faces crowded around. His message read, "Merry Christmas Eve, Mom. We miss you. Things are a bit crazy here. How's the cruise?" I sent back a photo of the sunset from the ship's deck. "Peaceful. Merry Christmas Eve to all of you. Give everyone my best." Later that night, he sent another message. "The water heater couldn't keep up with everyone's showers. How do you usually manage this?" I smiled a little as I responded with advice about staggering shower times, something I had mentioned weeks ago as a potential problem. Christmas Day on the ship was surprisingly festive, with holiday decorations throughout a special menu, and even a Santa appearance for the few children on board. Our little group of solo travelers exchanged small gifts purchased from the ship's boutique, and I found myself enjoying the day without any of the stress that usually accompanied my holiday hosting. That evening, during the formal Christmas dinner, Jean raised her glass in a toast to chosen family and peaceful holidays. And to remembering that our needs matter too. I added, thinking of Robert and how he would have encouraged this journey of self-discovery. When I returned home on December 30th, I found my house mostly intact, though with subtle signs of the large gathering that had taken place, a few new scratches on the hardwood floor, a small stain on the living room carpet, and one cracked pane in the French doors to the garden. James and Melissa were waiting for me, having stayed behind after everyone else left to clean up and greet me upon my return. To my surprise, Melissa looked exhausted and humbled. "How was the cruise?" she asked, her tone lacking its usual confidence. "Wonderful," I replied honestly. "Relaxing and exactly what I needed. How was your Christmas with the family?" James and Melissa exchanged glances. "It was educational," James offered. "It was a disaster," Melissa admitted flatly. "The kids broke 2 of your nutcrackers. Everyone complained about the sleeping arrangements. The bathrooms were constantly occupied, and cooking for that many people was a nightmare." Her honesty surprised me, but I appreciated it. "Large gatherings can be challenging to manage," I acknowledged. Mom, I had no idea how much work you've been doing all these years, James said, genuine appreciation in his eyes. I don't think I ever really saw it until you weren't here doing it. Melissa nodded reluctantly. My sisters bailed on helping with Christmas dinner. They said they were too busy catching up with everyone. So James and I ended up cooking everything ourselves. With some help from Boston Market, James added with a small smile. We had to order backup when the turkey didn't thaw in time. Over coffee at my kitchen table now back in its proper place, after being moved for the gathering, we had an honest conversation about expectations and respect. For the first time, Melissa seemed to truly listen when I explained my perspective. I never meant to make you feel unappreciated, she said, though her tone suggested she was still working on fully accepting her role in what happened. And I never meant to disappoint either of you, I responded. But I needed to demonstrate that my boundaries matter. Before they left, we discussed guidelines for future holiday gatherings, smaller groups, shared responsibilities, and most importantly, joint planning with genuine input from everyone involved. Next Christmas will be different, James promised, hugging me goodbye. And it was. The following year, we hosted a much smaller gathering, just James and Melissa, Sarah's family, and Melissa's parents and one sister. Everyone stayed in hotels except for Sarah's family, who used the guest rooms. Meals were planned together with specific people responsible for different dishes, and I found joy in hosting again now that it was a choice rather than an obligation. The Christmas after my Caribbean escape taught me that setting boundaries isn't selfish, but necessary, not just for my own well-being, but for the health of my relationships. By valuing myself enough to say no when needed, I actually strengthened the bonds with those who truly cared about me. Looking back, I believe Robert would have been proud of my decision. He always said that respect was the foundation of any relationship, and by requiring it for myself, I had finally honored his wisdom. In the years that followed, I found a better balance between giving to others and nurturing myself. I still hosted family gatherings, but I also took an annual vacation during one holiday each year, sometimes with family members who chose to join me, sometimes blissfully alone. The most valuable gift I received that Christmas wasn't found under any tree. It was the realization that setting boundaries is an act of self-love that ultimately improves all our relationships. Sometimes the most generous thing we can do for others is to teach them how to treat us with the respect we deserve. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with family during the holidays? Did you struggle with guilt afterward, or did it bring positive changes to your relationships? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about navigating complex family dynamics. Thank you for listening, and remember, taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary for your well-being and for maintaining healthy relationships with those you love.